I had been walking around near my home when I came across a folded note across the sidewalk. Now normally, I don't make it a habit of just picking up random things off the ground, but this looked like it had writing on it, and it wasn't often that I came across such an item. The note read as follows: I would often take long strolls in the night as I enjoyed the peace and quiet that usually came with it. I was a student at a local university taking a philosophy major, and these nightly walks were some of the best times to think about the various topics that were often talked about in class. It was one of those nights as I walked down the sidewalk to get to the intersection. There I noticed some blue headlights to my left, and they were shining blindingly bright. The car stopped at the intersection just before a stop sign, and I began to pass it going the other way on the sidewalk. What was so strange was they must have been stopped for a few minutes at the sign, and there were no other cars or people on the road. I couldn't see much of the driver or the car, so I wasn't sure of any detail about the vehicle. I got to the end of the block and turned again to go back around. As I walked along the street on the sidewalk, I noticed those familiar blue headlights pass by me again. The car just barely passed me, and I had a hard time making out the make or model. It was also too dark to see who the driver was or what they were doing. I thought maybe they were lost, distracted, or even intoxicated. I even considered stopping to help them if it was the former, but I decided against it, thinking it would probably be foolish. I got to the end of the street and went around again. By the time I got halfway down the street, I heard the sound of the car approaching behind me again, and I could see the blue lights shining onto the street as it approached. My uneasiness was getting to me, and I quickened the pace of my walking. Now I was a little more worried about not knowing what they were doing, and the fact they were going just as slow as before. By this time, I was pretty much ready to head home, so I didn't have to worry about it. So, at the end of the street I went to the left, hoping the car wouldn't appear again. I walked for a few feet until I heard the soft humming of a car engine, and I could see the reflection of the blue headlights on the street. At this point, I was pretty freaked out by the possibility that I was being followed for God knows what. So, I decided I was going to either lead them astray, if that was true, or at least lose them by confusing them. I certainly didn't want to go home with them following me, as that might as well be possible suicide. I zigzagged several times throughout the area, occasionally losing them and then having them show up again. By this point, I was certain that I was being followed, so running no longer seemed unnecessary. I ran as fast, as far, and as confusingly as I possibly could, until I was sure I had lost them. I hadn't seen the car again for a few minutes, and I wanted to get home pretty soon. This time I had to take a slightly longer route, different from the one that I usually take. This route was a long road through the countryside with ranches on one side and neighborhoods on the other. Other roads would sometimes join the path along the way, but my house was just a straight shot down this path. That night, just like the rest of the area, the roads were eerily quiet and everybody else was most likely still in their homes. Once again, I was on my own and I just hoped that the car wouldn't somehow pop up again. About a mile later, I had finally reached the end of the road, and my street joined it on the right. So, I turned to start walking down to my house, and in the next moment, I was being pushed to the ground by a hunk of metal. At this point, I must have been out for a while. When I woke up, it was dark, and it took me a few moments to realize that I was in the trunk of a car. I could barely move between the small size of the trunk and the injuries I must have sustained from the impact of the car. My head was throbbing with pain, and the rest of my body felt so goddamn sore. I checked my pockets to see if I had any of my stuff, but all of it was gone. I thought maybe it got taken, or maybe they were knocked out of my pockets when I fell. My mind was filled with terror as my thoughts rushed through what was going to happen. I felt completely hopeless as I laid there, and I had no way of escaping or getting help. There must have been hours of driving before the car finally came to a complete halt. I heard a car door opening and somebody's footsteps along the car. Then in just a moment, I heard the trunk being opened and I could see a little bit of the moonlight from behind somebody. They were looking directly at me while wearing a mask. I tried as quickly as I could plead with him or her or whoever it was. Please just don't hurt me. Don't fucking kill me, please. He didn't say anything or do anything, not even a flinch. He just stood there and stared at me with those eyes of his, those menacing eyes behind a bizarre sackcloth mask. Then, in a quick moment, I could feel a slug of pain across my face as he knocked me out. When I woke up again, my vision was all blurry due to just waking up and the side effects of getting snapped. I tried to look around, and it seemed like I was inside a warehouse of some kind. Strangely, the room that I was in didn't seem to be any bigger than the average bedroom of a home. It suddenly occurred to me that I was lying in a cot and a bucket sat next to it. I noticed a steel door across from me, and I slowly crawled my way towards it from the cot. As I got closer, I noticed there was no door handle, and no matter how hard I pushed the door, it didn't budge. I even tried to bang on the door and scream for help. My screams were so loud that I couldn't hear anything else besides myself, and it was completely silent outside, wherever that was. After a while, I just gave up on all the noise making, and I crawled back to my cot to get some more sleep. When I woke up, I noticed a tray of food, a bottle of water sitting next to me, and a book of some kind. I guess they came in when I was asleep. I think they wanted to keep me alive for a while, but I didn't understand why. Hours passed, and then days, and now I think it might even be a week. Since then, I looked through the book and it's actually just a journal. Nothing was written in it, and there was a pen inside. I don't know why they gave me that. Maybe it was because they didn't want me to go insane or try to kill myself. I don't know, and I guess it doesn't really matter. Just last night, I was searching for the room, and I found a tiny hole on the right wall. I could see a small bit of light coming from somewhere, and there was a bit of concrete, but I couldn't really see much else. I folded a bit of paper that I took from my journal and slid it onto the other side. So, if you are reading this, it means you got those slips of paper, telling the story, and maybe you know where you can find me. By the time I had finished reading, I wasn't sure if it was just a stupid prank or not, but I figured I shouldn't take any chances. So, I took it to the police, and they claimed they'd look into it. I haven't seen or heard from them since, so I suspect nothing has come of it. Whatever the case may be, nowadays I always try to be careful when I'm out by myself.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to listen to similar stories in future.